All right. So we are live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another expert session number 97. And my guest today is Marius Costin. But just before I introduce my guest, let me first start with our sponsor recognition. So first off, thanks to VTEX, the commerce platform powering global retail experiences, and AirMeet, the platform enabling our global virtual and hybrid events. A short bio of the expert today. Um, Marius Costin, a global payments executive with nearly 2 decades of experience across fintech, payments, and telecommunications, with deep operational exposure to Central and Eastern Europe. He previously served as CEO of PayU Romania, where he operated at the intersection of payment infrastructure, merchant economics, fraud, regulation, and consumer adoption during a period of rapid e commerce expansion. That role required navigating structural tensions unique to emerging digital markets, fragmented payment preferences, uneven banking penetration, cash persistence, and accelerating regulatory alignment with broader European frameworks. His experience spanned markets where payments are not simply a checkout feature, but a primary mechanism shaping trust, conversion, liquidity, and platform dynamics. This background offers direct visibility into how payment systems evolve under constraint, how regional behavior diverges from global assumptions, and how infrastructure decisions influence commercial outcomes long before strategy narratives adjust. So maybe Vini is going to be joining me soon. I'm not sure. He was busy, but hopefully we can have him participate. And we'll start the session now. So, Marius, I always start the sessions with one controversial opening question. And the controversial opening question for you is: have payments become one of the primary areas where commercial power is negotiated rather than a neutral utility supporting transactions?
Uh, uh, First of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. I have a saying: payment is utility until it isn't. So as long as it works, of course, payment is an utility. The moment that it stops working, then it becomes more than that, and it becomes part of the architecture of the market. Because if you do not have the rails to move the values across the economy participants, then I think that you can kill an entire economy. Um, I think there's more to say about it, but let's assume that let's not go to the extreme scenarios where payments disappeared. But I would say that in mature markets, payment looks like an utility. In emerging markets or fragmented markets, they are absolutely a source of structural leverage. And here we can talk about the risk logic, settlements, whatever. We can touch about payments, but definitely it go beyond being an utility.
Thanks. You're talking about payments as what I'm hearing, more like an infrastructure. So when it works, great. You don't perceive it. If it doesn't work, then what's going on? And it's so interesting, like building this community, Marius, because like you're growing something, and then people are like, "Oh, this is so cool," but then you're also dragged into things that people didn't take into consideration, that you're still building, and in our case with no funding at all. You know what I mean? So we've been there was the other day a member from Germany saying, "Hey, when are you going to do events here, like in person?" Like as if we started digitally, so there's an expectation that you deliver. And I think in payments, I'm just trying to draw a parallel here with what you said. You have an infrastructure. There's a lot of stuff that happens in the background, right? But people just expect to buy online and to have a frictionless experience, right? So
I think that it depends where are you in this payment process, because if we are talking about the payment providers, usually They control the risk logic, the settlement timing, local method orchestration, the data layers, cash flow control, because settlement it gives you um, very different perspectives of cash flow. On the merchant side, you can see the conversion optimization, approval rate, liquidity timing, chargeback exposure. But if we oversimplify this, we can say that the entity that shapes payment experience is actually shaping the commercial power. Because it's not only, as you said, it's not only a checkout, it's more than that. And even though it looks simple, there is a lot of work behind it and a lot of mechanisms in order to look simple.
Vinny, I'll let you ask in a bit, but my question is more like looking at payments as an infrastructure. And so if we, because the first thing I was so impressed by when we met in Romania eight years ago or 9 years ago, the thing about cash COD, cash on delivery. So that's one of the things that when you're a merchant or a commerce platform, you tend to overlook and ignore. But you have to look at your logistics in the market and payments and how that works. And for me, for example, in Romania back then, I mean, people were not buying digitally. There was this thing called cash on delivery, which meant that you needed to have what was the name of the guys delivering your goods? The one of the
Couriers,
logistics.
the fan,
Yeah,
fan courier. Yeah, I think
exactly.
you are referring to fan courier, okay?
Yeah, the courier, and you would be exchanging money with the courier, right? So what differs? I think in the first place, that is very interesting. So if you could explain a little bit about how it differs. The differences of an emerging market to a consolidated market, and why cash on delivery is probably in the emerging Europe in this markets are still so vital. I think that would be an interesting way to.
I will try to oversimplify. I heard several questions in what you were saying earlier. What's the difference between a well-settled country and an emerging one? I would start from education. I think that emerging markets might require some more time to educate themselves. It's about trust, because it's when I joined online payments, I ask myself, is it trustful to put my card on internet? How do they protect me? And I was a guy that I was coming from technology, so I was able to understand security, cybersecurity, so on and so forth. So I imagine that a simple person who never touched cybersecurity or doesn't understand all of these rules or the PCI DSS rules, now if we are talking about cards, might not understand how safe it is to use it. Just to build on what you were saying, when I joined online payments in 2014, just for the audience to understand the power of the cash on delivery, the penetration of all online payment methods, not only cards, in Romania it was something like 1.8%. So not even 2. Nowadays, we are talking about penetrations with 2 digits, very heterogeneous, distributed among e-commerce players. And more of the offline classical businesses are opening online channels. Now, what happened in meantime? I was trying to find a way to discuss with people using their own language and not entering deep into financial or payments language. So I asked myself why some people pay online and some people prefer cash. Why some merchants have 2 digits penetration, like 20%, 30%, and other merchants has 1 point whatever percent. And then I realized that it's about the trust. Actually, when you give money, it's a process of trust. So if you go and take the train, you go to the train station, you buy a ticket. So basically you pay up front, and then you wait for the train to come. You jump in, you travel. Why do you pay first? Because the railways company is very trustful. That's why you
Mm-hmm.
pay first and not at the end of the travel. You know that whatever it happens, the train will come at that specific hour and it will deliver you to the destination. If you are taking a taxi, a cab, then the situation is differently. You are paying afterwards, which means that the customer is more trustful than the taxi driver. And then transposing that, I spoke with the merchants that I was interacting with, and I said, dudes, do you know how can you understand how your brand is perceived into the market? The online payment penetration. Because online payment is an upfront payment, which means that if your customers prefer to pay online, that means your brand is trusted. If they prefer to pay with cash on delivery, it means that they perceive you as not being trusted. So more penetration you have is more like an NPS, like a net promoting score. Basically,
Mm-hmm.
very basic view and very oversimplified view of what means online payment for an online merchant. And I remember that I was in a conference, and I said, okay, how many of you spend budgets trying to understand your NPS score? Man, it was very sad. Something like, I don't know, 5 or 7 people raised their hands. And I said, you don't need to spend the money. Look on your online payment penetration, and you will
Mm-hmm.
understand how trustful you are. More penetration, better your brand is perceived.
I think what you're saying, it's amazing because it makes sense when you're saying that if you, for me, that's the major insight from this session, especially let's say in emerging markets, and I consider Romania like as I wrote a couple times on LinkedIn, it's one of the underdogs. It's an amazing market. I've been there many times, but that for me, it's such an interesting insight looking at Romania. And you've been to Brazil, Marius. You have seen how I would say developed the ecosystem in Brazil in payments infrastructure that we have there is. Um, but that for me is a very interesting insight. So payments, depending on the market, being kind of like your trust label, right? So, which for you maybe sounds obvious, but I don't know if for Vinny, for example. Vinny, by the way, you're in Ireland, so say hello. Late forever late.
Hey,
Vinny is our
Hi,
Marius.
Vinny.
Brazilian guy
Hi,
with
Vinny.
the green
I'm
eye
on
and
time.
Irish.
I was here just when the call started. Is that not perfect timing?
No, he was. Actually, he was.
Yeah,
I
I
just
was.
didn't
He
interrupted you
was.
to say hello. Yeah.
He
Yeah,
was. I was
I'm not
rude
rude.
then. Sorry, Vinny.
I'm always late, but never rude. Nice to hear from you, Marius. Look, payments. It's still first frontier of e-commerce growth anywhere in the world. So the penetration point is really well made for me. Digital wallets, I think they're probably at about 44%, getting close to 50% penetration of all payments right across Europe as a trading block, and things like Apple Wallet has penetrated us way more than we think, and to the point about trust, the metric that I look at from that perspective is the number of retailers that are using wallets now as primary method, and Apple penetration, from a wallet perspective, is incredibly high, and I'm sure you've seen that evolve over time. And then the other really interesting signal is when people started taking LLMs serious as places that commerce can now move to, it was when payment gateways and, as you said, acquiring banks started partnering with LLMs. That was the point I think we knew that this was not going to go backwards. So, to that world of trust, we know that the gateways and acquirers are there, and that they're all ready to be trusted. And we know that our phones are these safe storage places for all of the information that we have. I've kind of got two parts to this. One is to ask you kind of an immediate question. How can the acquirers and the payment gateways help with trust from a consumer perspective? Because I think that's where trust needs to be built. And then I was in a session with JP Morgan not so long ago, and they talked a lot about biometrics becoming that next key place for them to play, and they're leaning heavily into that. We have facial recognition and digital fingerprint. What is that next layer, and how quickly do you see it coming in terms of using an identifiable aspect about ourselves And then I have a follow-up question about where does it go after that? Because it's almost like our payment profile can become a key to our digital passport in the same way that an email address or a phone number has been, well, sorry, a phone number has been. So there's kind of three questions in there. I really want to get your perspective because Natopia have been around for such a long time.
Okay, so let me see if I remember the first one. The last two I understand it. So we are talking about the first question was how we can increase the trust. Yeah, this is
From a consumer perspective.
From the consumer perspective. So I think that here there are several things that we can do. When I started in payments, at least in Romania, it was a very low financial education level. I think Romania is still lacking this, comparing with Western countries in Europe, not to mention some Asian countries. And back then I was having a challenge. I said, okay, I do not have tens of millions in order to disseminate information and education. I cannot do it.
Yeah.
So basically what I have done, I tried to gather a lot of well-known brands and join forces in order to educate people. But how we do that? If we are using our technicality or a language that is known only within the specialists, it becomes like something like we say in Romania, wooden language. So it doesn't resonate with people. You need to speak with their languages. If you are explaining rules of PCI DSS or I don't know, different engines of anti-fraud, so on and so forth, these fancy words, it sounds very exotic for people and doesn't resonate. So we need to use their own language. And I think that what is very simplistic, for example, I'm just giving you just one example.
Yeah.
I think it's very simple to say, guys, if somebody is bringing you the box at your door, you are not able in 80% of the cases to open the box. You don't know what's inside. So you are paying cash at delivery. And then you discover that what you bought is broken. And it's an entire process of demonstrating that you didn't broke it and it was received like that. While if you pay with cards, you have chargebacks. And not only card, there are other payment methods. So basically we can oversimplify all this process and we can say, dude, if something's wrong, you are the protected part of this transaction. You will always get money back. So basically what I'm trying to say is the industry need to get together. When I'm saying industry, not only acquirers and PSPs, but as well as merchants, because they own the consumers, as long as you are not a wallet, because if you are a wallet, then you have consumers, so you can communicate directly. And secondly, use the people's language. Try to oversimplify. Tell them what's in it for them and tell them on things that they are interacting with. Don't try to get into the complicated world of payments, finance, regulation, compliance, anti-fraud, so on and so forth, because you lose them. And of course, I think that I use the trick in several countries. We were talking with authorities who has a different power of dissemination to create campaigns for, I don't know, phishing, hacking, this type of stuff. And you can disseminate as well information about the online secure payments, what that means, what they need to look. For example, it was a campaign in Romania and they were asking you to check the lock on the browser, very simple for the things that even a child can search for. Yeah. Instead of saying that guys use an HTTPS session, look, only you have a lock, a graphical lock there. Is it there? Yes, it means that it's secure. So on and so forth. So simplicity, channel of dissemination, and the power of the entire industry. This is you can use to gain trust. Yep. Now, the second question was?
I've lost in the middle. Let's fast forward to the third one, maybe, because it's probably the area that I think is interesting. Where's the industry going from a biometric
security? Okay, security. I remember.
Yeah, and
I'm very proud to say that I joined a team that made the world first. And this is linked to your question. Netopia launched last year Click to Pay bundled with passkeys. What that means and why it's important. First of all, we were the first in the world. Passkeys can be embedded with different processes, not only payments. We were the first ones in the world who bundled click to pay with passkeys. What that means? First of all, there are many payment players who implemented click to pay. This is basically a network tokenization. It's let's call it more like a card schemes wallet. But our partners from the card schemes insisted, especially from MasterCard, they insisted to embed it with passkeys and create a precedent, create the first use case in the world. Why? Because during the time, we in payments try to put more security on the payments. And probably you remember, Vinny, that there was the two-factor of authentication that was enforced in European Union, so on and so forth. It was somehow hard. It was a one-time passwords and on the phone, and then they switch it to biometry. Basically, you are an interface and you need to authorize the payment, so you need to switch to your internet banking, so on, or the virtual token, so on and so forth. Now, the card schemes, they have a dream that actually not a dream, but a mission to eliminate the PANs, which means the card numbers, because this is one of the origination of the frauds.
Okay.
And how you put security into it. And then we all realize that security needs to be strong, but if creates a lot of friction, then you kill the entire process. So basically, passkeys is providing a very secure biometry embedded with other personal things that goes very smooth. What that means, when you enroll the card in, I don't know, Click to Pay with Netopia, then basically you embed several characteristics. Your cards, your email, your phone number, your device, because you are using a device. And they are asking, this device is trustful? Yes. Okay, they embed all of these things together and it creates a security profile that is linked to your Click to Pay card. And when you start the new payment process, regardless the PSP or the acquirer, the scheme said, okay, I found this card for you. Do you want to pay with this card? Yes. And basically, the authentication is using the biometry of the device without pushing you to get out into internet banking, virtual token, whatever.
Yeah.
Why is this important? Because yes, you are using biometry, the other people use biometry, but in the same time, you are embedding more information. You don't need to switch devices, and it's creating a very unique profile. If something is missing in this mix, then it's rejected.
Can I ask, are you creating a passkey on every transaction, Marius, or a passkey at a consumer level that's then it can follow you around your transaction history and future?
The way that was done, it was a passkey that was attached to the click to pay profile. It was not linked to transactions, but there is such a mechanism that can be used.
I think about that in the same way I think about something like a disposable credit card for Pleo or
there are a lot of stuff that are one use only. There are a lot of ways, and I can tell you that not only in payments, there are other ways to use passkeys, but now here we are talking about payments.
And how is that architected? Like, is it a kind of a style of blockchain technology, or not to get too technical?
I'm not a technical guy, and honestly speaking, I don't know to say how it's designed, because passkeys and click to pay are on the card scheme side, are not on our side. What you are using, we are using some mechanisms to communicate. That's why when I save the card, when I'm buying from your shop, and I said, okay, I want to enroll it in click to pay, then it will be automatically recognized if I'm buying from Carlos next time, and Carlos doesn't have click to pay. It's everything is embedded on the card schemes level.
Got it. And look, I'm going to kind of fast forward a little bit, Carlos, and then I'll pass back over to you. But one of the areas, I guess, looking at the European Union as a bloc and all the countries and even outside of it and international trade, one of the things that we feel should be easier, but is not, is still international trade. And I sometimes feel like FX can be a limiter there because, at a consumer level, we're never sure, should we accept currency at home or kind of the origin currency, and it still causes confusion. But it's a huge margin take for MasterCard and Visa, and the level of education at merchant level around where this split comes in the transaction is virtually unknown. Amazon are probably the only people that display that breakout of the transaction, even though their breakout I don't think is strictly compliant. How do you think we can progress the transaction flow or even display of information from a foreign exchange point of view to make cross-border trade easier for customers? And you've kind of hinted on some of it there, like plain English and simplistic language, I think help, but the experience is still poor at its core.
Uh, I think that you touched a very sensitive point. Now, in a very complex political environment where basically the global players are killing the global trading, we are trying to talk about making this easier. But let me tell you like that. I think you touched a point of a technology that the card schemes put it together tens of years ago. What you are saying is called DCC, dynamic currency conversion. Dynamic currency conversion was built on very old technology, and on the FX engines, you need to have some treasury things in place in order to create transparency, so on and so forth. Back then, when it was developed, it was a real game changer because, I have my credit card in RON, but I'm going to Sao Paulo and I'm trying to buy something, and it was very hard for me. I was supposed to get to a bank, trying to get some US dollar or whatever currency that is accepted, and then go to exchange the local currency. So back then it was fine. The problem was that the technology was not so developed like today, and it was not so transparent. And basically what they have done, because it was not a guaranteed exchange rate, the margin were huge. Meantime, the financial services players, they started to develop more products. Now, I think that for the online merchants who tackle multiple geographies with multiple currencies, so on and so forth, basically they can apply what is called ICP and MCP. What that means, it means that you can have an FX engine, and if it's a hosted page, a payment hosted page, and if it detects a credit card in a different currency that you wants to capture it, it says, dear customer, you have pounds and you need to pay in euro. Do you want me to do this exchange, or do you want to go with the Visa MasterCard? And basically you display the exchange rate in that page, and of course it should be first of all predictable. You see it, you understand how much it costs you, versus just going in blind. On the other hand, the MCP, it's on the settlement side. So when the merchant is collecting money in 10 currencies, he said, I want the settlement only in US dollar and euros. Can you do this exchange for me if you are competitive? Because, I have my corporate bank, and I have some other partner. They can offer treasury services. And then you can use what is called MCP. On the MCP as well, there is transparency, because you have something like 24 hours or 48 hours exchange rate freezed, and you understand how much you collect in which currency, what is the exchange rate, how much you receive, even though you are receiving the money the next day. So this is one way to create transparency. Or if you are very big, you create your own treasury function, and then more transparent than that, it cannot be.
It's even at that level, I don't think it's quite understood the margin take that's happening, but you've described it brilliantly. It almost sounds like every merchant should be creating their own treasury function in general, even with things like passkeys, because it can be such a powerful conversion tool, as you said, in the eyes of the consumer. But taking ownership of that payment side, I think, is going to be crucial, particularly as we get into the world of agentic and so on. Carlos, I'll pass back over to you. That was brilliant. Thank you so much, Marius.
Thank you, Vinny.
No, nice. We are on 30 minutes now. So
so fast.
yeah. And then we, just so you know, Marius, we open the floor also for the community to jump in and ask questions. So it's always a conversation. But I would ask more. I think so. You guys touched upon some interesting things about politics. About then we went a bit more technical in the aspect, the FX rates and why things happen in the manner that they have happen. But I'm also interested in perhaps exploring a little bit about the uniqueness of Central and Eastern Europe, Marius. So if you could just outline, I think we have members. So Hawan is in the US, Cristiani, she's a new member in Brazil, Vini is in Ireland. So we have, and this is going to be shared on YouTube. We're going to create video snippets. So why the region is so unique, and what is commonly misunderstood in your region there?
If you are outside of European Union and you didn't travel a lot in European Union, I think it must be misleading. So the people outside European Union think that EU is a country. It's a federative country, but it's still a country. Hence, we should have the same currency. The news is that we do not use all of the countries from the European bloc the same currencies, especially the Eastern European countries. Now, this is something that is unique. So in Romania, we have RON. In Bulgaria, we used to have leva, BGN, but now they switched to euro. In Poland, they have zloty. In Hungary, they have HUF, forints. In Czech Republic, crown, so on and so forth. So the eastern part, they are still using the old currencies, the local old currencies, and this can be unique and puzzling because there is a lot of friction with this and a lot of FX, like Vinny was saying prior to this. Another thing that is unique and very misunderstood are the local payment methods. So if Poland managed to have a more efficient communication and explain to everyone what a pay by link is and what BLIK is, which basically there are fast internet transfers, fast bank transfers, and BLIK meanwhile became actually a payment scheme, a local payment scheme. In Romania, it was very strange. Why? Because from Hungary below in the Eastern Europe, if you're looking on the map, there are what I'm calling card-driven countries, which means that most of the online payments are going through cards. So then everybody says, okay, what's local to cards? Well, there are a lot of things that are local to cards. For example, loyalty schemes and what we call free of interest installments. And I found myself very hard to explain to very big fashion players that they were trying to use a pure cross-border model. So they were having a headquarter in Germany, and they were trying to capture Poland, Hungary, Romania, Bulgaria. And I was trying to say, guys, you need installment cards. And they said, what's an installment card? It's a credit card, yeah? Yes, but actually this has a loyalty scheme on top, and you need to implement this. Yeah, but it's credit card. Credit card goes everywhere. No, because on this type of installments, the issuer and the acquirer, it needs to be the same. And moreover than that, if you are in some specific industries and you do not have installments, you are actually missing something like 40% of your potential. A basket that you can buy with an installment cards, it can be 50% higher. And these installment cards are working like that. I'm paying, I don't know, 100 euro. I want 3 installments, and basically I'm returning in 3 monthly installments 100 euro back, equal installments. The returning of the installments, it goes between me and my issuing bank. The merchant is receiving the entire amount of the basket, 100 euro minus acquiring cost minus financing cost. So basically, the interest rate is paid by the merchant. And it was very hard for me to explain how important it is to use this, because they were saying, They are just credit cards. It's the same everywhere. No, you cannot use. Actually, MasterCard had the brilliant idea to create what they called off-us installments, but the UX was really bad and didn't have success. So there are a lot of things that are unique and can leverage a lot of markets. This is what I would say. If you plan to develop business in these countries, just speak with the local expert and they will explain how to use it. It's like Boleto in Brazil. So it was very hard for me to explain to the same fashion player who wanted to sell cross-border in Brazil what Boleto is. Of course, we manage at the end of the day, but it took us a few months to explain in each country the local payment methods and how it works, why it's working like that, so on and so forth.
Brilliant. Hawan, go ahead, my friend. Ask away.
Marius, it's been great. I really liked your analogy about the train that you pay before because you trust the service. I've never think about e-commerce like that, so it's really, really good analogy. Thank you for that. Vinny, good to see you again. Like last week, you already did the question that I would do. So
Sorry.
you always do good questions. And also, I bring it here. The book of Kevin just arrived yesterday. Marius, what I would like to ask for you is I've been to NRF past January, and we saw a lot about agent AI and agent buying stuff, and also the UCP. I'd love to hear what you think about that. How and connecting what Vinny asked you before about biometrics and security. How can we secure that the agent is buying something that the people really really want, or it is not a bug or something like that?
Oh, this is a very tough question because I don't think we know really where this will go. I don't think that there is a way back. I'm pretty sure that agentic commerce or agentic payments, it will just enter in our lives. In autumn, I met Carlos in Bucharest, and I was a host to Netopia conference, and I told everybody we are not anymore in e-commerce, we are in AI commerce. And it's not something, it's not a marketing line. We actually made a demonstration of agentic commerce at that conference. The problem that we are having is that we don't know how the market will be shaped, how the AI will shape the behavior of the buyers. There are some open protocols, and there are some protocols that are not open, that are already developed, and I will mention here AP2 from Google. This is an agentic payments protocol from Google, which is well recommended by the card schemes, Visa, MasterCard. I think that this is a very, very, very complex question, and I will be honest, I do not have an answer for this, very straightforward answer, because we need to digest more. How we make sure that there is not a bug? Well, first it starts with protocols, because protocols is putting the play field, what are the rules, and then you need to obey the rules. And in the same time, I think that you need to understand how to prompt the agent. So it's not only about the rules, but you need to instruct the agent how to play with these rules. Is it enough now? I don't think so. I don't think that the infrastructure is ready for that. Can we see traffic and conversion rate in e-commerce? Yes, we do. Is it the AI traffic that is built is overcoming the other channels? No. I have a study upon hundreds of thousands of transactions, but definitely is like that. So in the future, probably a lot of traffic will come from AI. Now, this is one side. how you make your website ready for AI, because it's not about interfaces, graphic interfaces, but it's how you exchange metadata and how you make it ready, how you structure it. You need to understand what type of data the AI would like to consume, how you receive the answers from the AI. And then there is the agentic action. Okay, first I search, so the agentic commerce or the agent that you are using is starting to search. The search is not linear, it's parallel, so on and so forth, and then it's it starts to create a transaction to put in the basket and then to go to the checkout. I think that we are not really understanding exactly how it will look like for the moment. I don't think that we understand all the use cases. I think that we are now in a stage where we need to prepare our infrastructure to be AI ready in all the aspects. And the way that I led this AI transformation was based on 3 pillars: core product, operations, and merchant and customer UX. Very different use cases of AI with different impacts, different flavors. You need to develop different skills, so on and so forth. I do not have a straight answer for that, but definitely we need to create the infrastructure for AI, because it will change the buying behavior. And it's something that is very deep. When you instruct an agent to buy on your behalf, is like action and you forget about it. That's it. You don't need to do anything else. My question is how you keep track on it. We are human beings. We forget. And if you are instructing 10 agents or whatever, it is a moment when you just don't keep the count. How this will interact, how the interface will look like. I don't think we are ready for this yet to give a straight answer, but definitely it will go in that direction. The entire industry, payments, e-commerce, so on and so forth.
Thank you for your honest answer.
Yeah.
I really agree with you that we have a lot to figure out. But thank you for your great answer.
A quick thing on
I
that,
think
Havan, that I'm just watching in terms of earnings calls is the growing use of agentic in terms of GMV take. It's now being reported by platforms all over, and it's a good indicator that they're taking it seriously. They don't respond to questions about it afterwards, but to Mariusz's point, it's definitely here to say, but it's the way I'm tracking the growth of agentic is through mentions of it in earnings calls and reports come out quarterly, and you can see it appearing more and more. So I'll share some of that into our group as well, just if you want to have a look at tracking yourself.
Yeah, sure.
Very cool. And Marius, to your point, and maybe Kamal is going to ask you, but for example, I mean, there's a lot of noise around agent, these LLMs now, where you're going to be able to, for example, with OpenAI to buy, and Shopify announced a partnership there. And with that, as you mentioned really well, rightfully saying that the buying behavior will change. And my question is more like on buying behavior with some trends also, but trends that I see happening now, and with companies that we are actually working with in terms of voice, that are following these trends. Because you said, how are we going to track this? But at least on the buying behavior aspect, where do you see some emerging trends that are tied to payments? So, for example, I think people are gonna, because you said, how do I explain to the agent that I want to buy a certain thing and the agent understands me? But over time, probably we're gonna have our a specific agent that really knows us. And I think we are feeding. I'm using GPT a lot nowadays, so GPT more accumulates a lot of data about me. So over time, it starts to understand my persona. I think I listened to a podcast the other day that they said that GPT already has more data about us than Facebook has, which is kind of interesting, worrying. I don't know, but since GPT is going to understand a lot about myself, I mean, when I talk to GPT, then it's probably going to infer what I want, and it's going to be able to complete that purchase, no, or help me a lot in that process. How do you see that?
Um, you asked several questions. If you are talking about trends, I think that agentic payments or agentic commerce is definitely one of the trends. Even though that the impact we cannot measure it yet, I can confirm that it is a trend, and I think that this is a question that needs to be raised for the long tail, for the small and medium businesses, because they do not have the power to create the entire infrastructure ready for agentic. And this is where companies like Netopia is coming to prepare this infrastructure and make them available in this agentic world, AI world, let's call it. Now, another trend is to embed multiple financial services around the transaction, and not necessarily on the consumer side, but more on the merchant side. And I'm seeing a lot of trends on building on, I don't know, going into omni-channel, which is a bit of already has some history. So to enter from online to omni-channel, to add additional services like FX, I was saying earlier to Vinny about the MCP and ICP, treasury services, billing, so on and so forth. So these are definitely two trends. And basically what it's doing is interfacing and creating a frictionless interaction between the financial services and the consumer of these services, being consumers or merchants. Now, regarding the topic of how AI understands us, I think that Christine is having a very good comment here, because context is very important. I would say it's, yes, really, really important about how an LLM understands the task. It's very important, the context. So it's not only about you, the context is more than you. It can understand your behavior and your patterns, but what about the external variables? How often do you meet the same context in order to allow an LLM model to learn about it? That's why I'm saying I think that we are at the very, very, very early stage. Definitely the AI is creating a lot of progress. Definitely more we work with AIs like Bing, ChatGPT, Gemini, whatever LLM are using, they will learn about us, about different contexts. Where it will go, I don't know. Will you go back? No, definitely no. I can say to you, because look on how you are. I'm old enough to remember when I was going to a library. Guys, being in a communistic country, because Romania was a very hard dictatorship until 89, there was nothing to be done as a kid. So my best fun was to go to library and read books, Karl May, Tom Sawyer, whatever. And I remember in order to look for a book, I was preparing some cards by hand. I was searching the name of the book, filling some cards, and then the librarian goes and bring me the. When Google show up, actually I am old enough to see the Yahoo. I started with Yahoo, and then when Google showed up, I said, "Oh my God, no, this is the easiest thing that we can do." And look now, on how you interact with ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever versus Google. Will you go back to Google? From time to time, yes. But it's very easy when you need to compare things to give a task to an AI. Would you like to create a value cap on two files to see if there are differences, or you send it to an AI to do it for you? It's easier, so it eliminates a lot of friction, and we will not go back. I can tell you, we will not go back.
100%. I'll shut up. The community is more important. Go ahead, guys and gals, please.
Not about Yahoo, guys. It's history. So let's talk about the reality.
Hi, Marius. Quick question. From a commerce side, well, two questions. From a commerce side, does it get to a point where we have to, a brand or on that of the business side, we have to prove like the user intent on that transaction, like, or accountability? Because there's lots of ways, on the commerce side, those conversations can happen. From a finance side, a little bit more to yourself, are there any like fraud patterns that you're seeing that worry you, or that you're looking at?
So I think that all the players in transaction, being the buyer or the seller, or being the financial institution who is intermediating the transaction, I think we all need to look on the safety of the transaction, anti-fraud, so on and so forth. Now, legally speaking, your payment provider is the one, at least in European Union and most of the developed countries, who is the one who is responsible for the transaction. I've seen different patterns. So I've seen players that are saying that, guys like us, we provide anti-fraud by default. And there are some players who says, if you want anti-fraud, I can switch it on, you pay £5 or whatever. You have a subscription, or it's a percentage out of the transaction. Do the merchant needs to worry about it? I would say yes, because it's about the sanity of our ecosystem. Does it have the tools? Does it needs to invest? I don't know. There are merchants who invested a lot because they do understand better the customer behavior. And there are merchants that are fully relying on the PSP, on the acquirer, whatever they are using as a institution to capture the payments. The best results in my career, there were when the merchant and the payment provider were working together in order to prevent the frauds. And at the end of the day, if you are perceived as being a safe location for buyers, you will have more and more buyers. And I saw that this type of feeling safe as a consumer allows a bit of more margin. You cannot double the price. Probably they will try to buy from some other places, but definitely your processes, the way that we are interacting, when I'm saying we, I'm saying because the payment provider is actually an extension of the merchant. So they need to be perceived like one entity by the buyer. If we create easy processes, fast answers, fast solving of chargebacks or whatever, fast customer support, then they will allow you, they will prefer to buy on a bit more expensive price that allows you a bit more margin than from other shops that are unreachable. And I can put myself in these shoes where I've seen a lot of good products, but I never dare to buy from them because they were cross-border, no contact details, nothing to interact with. I didn't know what to do. So in case of something is wrong, I'm just going to my insurer bank and I put a chargeback. I don't know exactly with whom I made the transaction. I don't know if I answered to your question, Kamal.
It has, because it goes back to what I wrote in the chat earlier. It was about that consumer trust element, getting the consumer trust bit right. Sorry, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen here, and so, Kamal, the way that I'm seeing is that when somebody is willing to give you money, knowing that you will deliver, it definitely you are sure that you have the trust of that person. So you can create a lot of campaigns to convince them to pay online versus the cash on delivery. That shows you how much trust you have in your customer base. So this was the idea that I was pushing earlier. I think I pushed this in 2017 when I realized that you pay upfront or after delivery. And I realized that this is the first indicator of an e-commerce player, if he's a trustful brand or not. And there are different ways to gain their trust. Of course, frauds, whatever, UX, what I mentioned earlier. But in the same time, I think that if you want to push together with your PSP or with your acquirer for more online payment adoption, I think that you will be very well positioned. Fast access to cash, easy to reconcile the channels. I don't know. This was my opinion. Maybe I'm from this industry, and there are, of course, other ways to gain the trust of your customers. But this is what I know what to do.
I really like that insight. I think it's a powerful insight. The one about buying online, how much trust you have if you buy online, if you buy offline. So it's not obvious. That's what I, it might seem obvious when you think about it. Well, it's obvious, but when you, for us, I don't think it's something obvious. And yeah, that's definitely a video snippet that I'm going to be promoting there and amplifying Marius.
Okay. Thank you. I hope that is a
Um,
valuable idea for everybody.
Yeah, no, 100%. Hendrik, you always come up with some very good questions. Hendrik speaks from South Africa, Marius, the home of roses nowadays. And go ahead,
So,
Hendrik.
so firstly, thanks for the conversation today, Marius. I think a few things that for me that you kind of highlighted, which I think folks need to be very mindful of. One, I think the payment sector needs to thank emerging markets like Romania, like South Africa, like India, like Brazil, like whatever, because in emerging markets, innovation is required to ensure that people can make a payment online. I don't think Visa and MasterCard will ever admit to that because remember, they are the downpipes. My question is both a comment and a question. Do we really know how agentic commerce looks like? Do we?
Yes, we do understand how it looks like now. The question, if is the best shape of it, I don't think we know how to answer to this question. So we do understand how it operates. We do understand how to build protocols. We do understand with what we would like to interact. But I don't think we understand how we humans will interact with, and what, from theory to something that is used day by day, it's a long way. And
I
I
think
think
you
that
are.
we will need,
Yeah.
I think that we'll need more iteration about it.
Hendrik, what's the question behind the question? That's my question for
So
you.
I think Marius is being very diplomatic when he talks about agentic commerce, in the sense that my so from a financial standpoint, from the payments little knowledge that I have, MasterCard and Visa will force their ways into these transactions. That's just how they operate. That's the scale they have. My question remains, and this is a point that I've heard from analysts and people that I trust. From a consumer standpoint, the agents are not aligned. So the consumer agent wants the lowest price, the retailer's agent wants the highest price, and then somewhere in between, and Marius, I think this is what you're alluding to, somewhere in between all of this is the payments agent that was used to, I need a human to essentially confirm whether this is a transaction. I think the thing that Carlos mentioned, which for me, I think I wanted to make a big mention of, is that as I sit in the middle of the world, I only see one market basically jumping up and down about agentic commerce. And Carlos, that is, wait for it, North America.
Okay.
It's not in Europe. It's definitely not in Africa. I can tell you that. We still can't even do the basics. But the point that I'm trying to make here is that emerging markets like Romania, Eastern Europe, Brazil, Latin America, Africa, we still have a lot to do before we even get to agentic commerce. Marius mentioned today things that I really hope entrepreneurs on this call listen to, because payments is essentially the trust factor that no one understands. That, to Marius's point, if I don't know the person I'm buying from, I'm going to go to the bank and I'm going to charge the fee because I'm not getting any customer service. The thing for me where this conversation gets really, I wouldn't say weird, is 300 million people in America versus how many billion in the world. I appreciate everybody talking about agentic commerce. I know Vinny's so entertained, he's already left the conversation. But the point for me is that we have lots to do outside of North America before agentic commerce hits. That was the question behind my question.
So,
And-
Hendrik, let me
Great question.
clarify some things.
Yes.
There is another player in terms of AI agents that you didn't mention. So, agentic commerce is one. Agentic payment is different. They have different protocols. You mentioned about the agents of the merchant, and I hope that my English is good. I think it's a dichotomy. This is the word.
Yes.
Guys, you need to understand that my English is coming from movies and songs. So
Same
Very
here.
good.
Marius.
the only agents out of these three categories of agents, because these are categories, that are able to initiate actions are the buyer agents. The agents of the merchants can push recommendations. They cannot initiate a transaction on behalf of a buyer because they are not allowed. This is one. But of course, the commerce agent of the buyer, it will interact with the agent of the e-commerce shop. Now, that's why I'm saying, yet we are not ready on how to read the data, how to interact, so on and so forth. Not because I'm diplomatic, but because I don't think that we do have the infrastructure.
Yeah.
Second, agentic payments, it's a different process that needs to follow some requirements. You said Visa and MasterCard. Of course, they will try to push and enforce their rules because they are big. But in the same time, and by the way, I know a little bit of South Africa, I know India, I know Romania, working with PayU. I had experience in more than 60 emerging countries. The issue is that above Visa and MasterCard is always the local financial regulation. Hence, all the agents will be forced to follow the regulations, first of all, of the regulator, and afterwards of the payment schemes, being them Visa, MasterCard, Union Pay, whatever you mentioned.
Yeah.
Hence, I think that the regulators will have a big impact in agentic payments, not commerce.
Yeah.
This is the protocols are very different. Okay, because guys, agentic commerce is very important. It's creating an interface, but it doesn't engage into an exchange of value and into a contract until the payment is not done. Hence, the agentic payments will be more regulated than the first one. And the agents of the shops will need to understand how to upsell, sell something more expensive with more margin, so on and so forth. Now, coming back, Hendrik, to what you are saying, guys, AI is coming from United States. They are talking about their environment, their behavior, but actually in the world, there are more billions outside of United States. I totally agree. What you need to take into consideration is the capacity of LLMs or the AIs to adapt to some context, because somebody was talking about the context. I don't think that we will follow the American rules. I think that they will gradually adapt, and the buying behavior will shape their adaptation. So I'm not worrying about United States pushing their rules. Of course, they generate a lot of innovation. Let's face it. Let's recognize it. Let's respect it. But in the same time, this is the beauty of AI. They will adapt. They will adapt to us. And there is talking about being in a company in emerging countries. Let me tell you, for example, a very big, small, big, whatever you want to call it, difference in buying behavior. Hosted payment page. In Romania, it needs to be sleek. Only one bar, you put your card number, nothing displayed, it needs to be clean. While when we try to adopt the same hosted payment page in Turkey, the guy said, "Are you crazy? Nobody will buy it. It looks like a fraud." So you need to display all the payment methods. You need to have terms and conditions. You need to have everything. It is just interface, but it's driving trust or not. It's the same company, the same engine behind it, but the way that you interact with your buyers shaped the product in a different way. And I know the same story with South Africa, so on and so forth, other countries. Please, Carlos.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Marius. I just need to be respectful of your time. So, Marius, we'll have to wrap up. So, this was such a great session because we had interaction. We're going to do another session on payments. Marius, if people want to learn more about you, what are you doing these days? What's the best way to get in contact? If you're
Guys,
not involved, of course.
I'm on LinkedIn, so you can search for more profile for my profile. You just need to understand that I'm going to LinkedIn at every second or third day, so I'm not always on LinkedIn. I'm old enough. I have only LinkedIn and Facebook. I do not have Instagram. I do not have TikTok. I do not have all the other social media platforms. I'm on Evolve WhatsApp group. And of course, you can have my contacts from Carlos. I will be glad to interact with you. You can even ask for my phone number. I'm not just, please try to check the time zone, because if we are trying to communicate at 3 a.m. in the morning, some people might sleep. You can text me, but I will answer when I wake up, so it's not a problem. So yeah, feel free to contact me.
Amazing. That was it. 1 hour and 6 minutes plus the networking session. Marius, really appreciate it. This was awesome, man. Well done.
Thank you, guys.
Congrats.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Let me see if I know how to get